Hi, I'm Dr. Denise Taylor and I talk about later life, 50s, retirement, moving forward. Today, I'm going to answer a question that lots of people ask me. When should I retire? Let's first think about in the past. It used to be so easy. You retired when your organisation told you to retire. So some organisations had a retirement age in line with the state pension, and others, like Royal Mail, the post office who I used to work for, the standard retirement age was 60 for man and woman. Now, often that would then leave 5 years between retiring with your work pension and getting the state pension. But in most cases, people had had enough. The work was physically demanding and, they were happy to leave. And also, I used to be a welfare officer and I would be dealing with probate and going and visiting members of staff or the families of members of staff after they died. And it was surprising how many people died, within a year or so of retirement, particularly if they'd carried on working up until 65. So this is what it was like, 30 years ago maybe. So nowadays, you've not got an organisation saying retire, it's down to you. And this is really hard because it's a hard decision. Well, it's like, well, when do I go? And what often drives us is the money. So one of the first things people are trying to work out about with their financial advisors or whoever is, will I have enough money to retire? So we know how much money that we live on when we're working, and we know we're going to get a state pension, and we can work out and find out how much that's going to be. And then there's going to be the occupational pension, which if it's the new defined contribution one where you manage your pot, you've got to work out a whole range of things about how long it's going to last and what your investments are going to do. That's not my area of expertise, so I'm not going to go down there. But one of the things you will be thinking about is money. But it's also is, what am I going to do with my time? And it might be you want to retire because you want to leave that sort of work behind and move into something else, something that's possibly less taxing, possibly it's not full-time anymore, possibly it's something that you've always wanted to do. So that can drive you. So when should I retire? When you want to. But what are the things you're taking into account? I've said about money. But you also want to be taking into account your health. I know somebody who's been given been told he's got 2 to 3 years left to live, and he's retired now. He's between 60 and getting the state pension, but it's like, well, why would I carry on working until I die? Now, hopefully, he's going to live longer than the prognosis, but you don't know because none of us know how long you've got. So I think sometimes we want to think about, how is our health and how do we feel? And do we feel that we want to carry on working? Or do we actually feel it's time to just sort of like what we class as enjoyment, do the things we really want to do rather than be doing the things that we have been doing? So that can be an area to think about. And people are different, and some people, it's very much, I now want to take things easy. I want to, go and visit National Trust properties or potter more in my garden or look after the grandchildren. And the sort of life they want to have is much more, I'm definitely not working. It's going to be these sorts of things. But for other people, it might be driven because they need the money, but it's often driven because they just don't want to just sit and do basically nothing, I suppose. It's like, but I want to work. And it could be that they're going to work down at B&Q because, they're noted for taking on older people. It could be a part-time job that's, not highly taxing, but just brings some money in and gives them content, connection with people. So it could be things about that. So I'm not going to tell you, sorry if you thought I was going to give you the right answer, I'm not going to tell you when you should retire, but it's just to raise some questions so that you can start thinking about it. But for those of you who might be watching this and are thinking, I've no intention of retiring, Denise, I'm just going to carry on working until I can't work anymore. You know what? I used to think that, and honest to goodness, until last summer, that's what I thought I'd do. I was 68 last August, and I always used to tell people, well, I'll work until my brain stops working. Why wouldn't I still be working at 75 or 80? And then a friend of mine said to me about how she was going to retire and she couldn't wait. And she's like 10 years younger than me. And she goes like, what about you, Denise? Why do you carry on working so much? And I kept on thinking of myself as somebody had a more flexible life because I worked for myself. But alongside writing assignments and clients and other things, my life was pretty full on. And I realised I'd been working for 52 years because I started working a month before my 16th birthday. And I thought, why don't you actually take a time out? And I did. I took 3 months off. I just basically put the gone away sign on my website. And I spent a lot more time out in nature. And I kept on thinking, yeah, I want to carry on doing things, but I don't want to carry on, with my diary being driven by client appointments. And my life has changed. And I would never have expected this a year ago, 9 months ago. I wouldn't have thought that I would go for a different pace of work. So if you're thinking, I'm just going to carry on working, it might be that you need to actually take some time just to reflect, to think, do I want to? And something that is really useful to think about is imagine yourself at 90 or 80 or some age into the future, as if you've carried on working and now you can no longer work. So if that's you, how would you then be feeling? It's like carried on. Now I've just got to stop. And I've got to stop and spend a lot more time resting. And possibly you've had to stop because of your health concerns. And now you can't go out, you can't go out on nice long walks or anything. And your life has gone from very busy to doing not very much at all. And I always feel that people like that have missed out on some really, really great years of life. And what came out of my academic research is round about 60 to 75 is like these golden years, the young olds. And at this stage of life, and I'm 68 and a half, at this stage of life, we could be, and hopefully we are still in our prime. We can do all sorts of things. But energy is dropping a little. I now need more time to recover from certain things. And so if I was going full on work, I'd have to spend more time recovering, and that would give me less time to do the things I actually want to be doing. So that's something for you to think about. I often like to give people just questions to ponder on. I'm not going to give you the answer, but imagine if you just carried on full time, working hard, and then stopped because you had to. How would that make you feel? And then equally, imagine yourself at the same age, but somebody who's maybe tapered off slowly or had 10 years where work has certainly not been the main part of your life. How would that make you feel? And is that a kinder, more gentle way into older age? I can't tell you it is, but that's more the way that I'm living. So I hope this has given you some useful thoughts. And, having been involved in the whole thing about retirement for over 40 years, I've got some good knowledge that backs up what I say. It's not just, hey, this is what I've done and I think it will work for you, but it's what I call evidence-based. It's all built within academic knowledge and lived experience for 40 years, working with clients, etc. And these are questions people ask me about. So until next time, it's Dr. Denise. Take care. Bye-bye.